right, everybody, we are at the end of the Golang course. And of course, once we're at the end, the last video, we make a little project. So what I decided to do was, follow that Python trend that I had where I created the Flask API. And now we're going to create a web API inside of Golang with Golang. So the first thing that we're going to do is we'll just create a new directory here. Name this web API. I'm going to create my main.go, create my main package, and then do my imports here. So the first is, of course, FMT if I want to print anything out. The next is going to be net HTTP. So this is the library that we're going to be using to make those web calls, those API calls, so we can essentially open up a web browser and go to slash, something, homepage or about me or anything like that. And then that's what's going to, help us return that value and make those HTTP calls. So we're going to start off with our main function. And our main function is actually going to hold a request function. So let's leave the main function blank right now. So what we're going to do is first, we're going to create a home page. So we'll say func homepage, and we will open up our parentheses for parameters. We're going to create our brackets. So in our params or in our arguments, whatever we're passing in, what this is going to hold is our response. So the actual HTTP response, aka the thing that is printing to the screen pretty much. And then the actual HTTP request itself. So what this is going to do is this is going to give us the ability to make that HTTP request, make that call, and then write it back to us, respond back to us with whatever we put in this function. So what we're going to do is we're just going to call this response here, this argument, and then we're going to make HTTP response writer, and we can see my IntelliSense working here. And then we're going to create one more. So that's going to be for the response for what we want to return back to us. Next, we're going to call the HTTP request. So that's what's actually going to make that request here. And then we have this pointer so we can point directly to the value itself. And then we can make a printf statement here. And what do we want to write out to everybody? We could say, welcome to the Go Web API. And then what if we want, like some, not console logs, but some output written to the console itself? Well, we can do that with println here. And we can say, endpoint hit, and that endpoint's going to be the home page. So what's going to happen is if somebody goes to the home page and let's say like you're running the web app or you're looking at the logs or something like that, it'll print out to the console, hey, somebody hit the home page. And then let's go ahead and just create a new function as well. We'll call this function and we'll say about me. We're going to use the same exact arguments here with responses. And then what we're going to do is we'll just copy this out and we'll say a little bit about Michael Levan, and then we'll say homepage hit about me. So these are going to be the two pages. One is just going to be that root page where you go to the URL, aka localhost in our case. That's what we're going to be running. And then we have a little about me. So that's going to be a completely separate page there for us. Now, you may be wondering this function, this main function. Now, typically, like what we've seen from functions is that we put our functions inside of our main function so they can be called through the main function, the aka procedural-based programming, where you have multiple functions and you're calling them one by one from the main function. But we're actually not calling these functions. We're going to be calling a request function. So we're just going to name this request1. We don't have to pass in any arguments. And we're going to want to use the HTTP package again. And then we're going to say handle func, aka handle the function. What do we want to do with the function? Well, for our home page, we just want it to go to the root directory, and then we'll pass in another value here, and here is where we're going to pass in the function name. And then we're going to create one more handle, and this handle, as I'm sure you guessed it, is going to go to about me, and then we can make this like /about, for example. Now we're going to have to listen and serve that HTTP request up. So we got to be able to serve it, and then we got to be able to specify what port we want it to hit. And to do that, we're going to use the log package. So right in the same function, the request function, we're going to do log fatal, and then HTTP listen and serve, our parentheses here, and we're going to pass in two values. The first is going to be the port that we wanted to listen on, and this can be whatever port of your choice, especially if you're running it locally, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to do 8080. And then our second value that we're going to be passing in here, just going to pass in nil. We don't need to get anything back about this. This can be, completely none. We just want to be able to serve up that HTTP request on port 80. And then finally, we got to run this function, which is going to be where we are putting inside of our main function. So remember, these functions don't have to be run specifically in the main function. Why? Because they're being handled right here in the request function. So the request one function is going to be what we're running inside of our main function. And with that, let's go ahead and run this and kind of see what happens. So I'm going to go to my web API. I'm going to go run main.go. Okay, so this is interesting too. So I get this Windows security alert saying unknown. Do I want to be able to trust it? Yep, I know, because I'm running it myself, so it's fine. So it's going to go, and then now what we can do is I'm going to open up a web browser here. I'm going to go to localhost 8080. So what's going to end up happening is this is going to be blank. Oops, what did we do wrong here? Let's go back, look at the function. Oh, I didn't put printf. Duh. All right, let's. But we can see that our println is working properly. So let's go ahead and run that again. And then I'm going to get that pop up again. I'm going to do allow. I'm going to go back to my web browser. And let's see. Okay, we're still running blank. Let's see what exactly is happening here that it's not actually doing the response for us fully. Now, if we think about it for a second, the interesting part is that it's actually returning at the console. So it is in fact working and it is returning. However, if we go to the web URL here, you see that it's not actually returning any values to the UI itself. But again, we can still see that it's returning this to us, which is, obviously great. And we can see that it's coming out in the console, but we can't see it coming out in the web UI. So why? The reason why is because we're not actually responding. So we have this printf here and we have the println, and yeah, that looks all good and great here in the terminal, but it's not actually printing anything out. It's not doing any type of response for us. It's not writing anything to the UI. So in that case, we're going to have to type in response here, and then we're going to get two brandy new errors. So essentially what this is saying is you cannot use the type HTTP response writer as type string in argument fmt printf. Now, fmt, or the format package, it has a ton of different ways to return those values to you with whatever you're using. If you're using a terminal or if you're using a console, you can pretty much, return it in any way. So what we're going to have to do here is we're going to change this to an fprintf. We're going to save that, and we can see that the error goes away. So what fprintf allows us to do is it allows us to work with the HTTP type with the response writer so we can bring that UI to life. With that, I'm going to exit out. I'm going to run again. And then I'm going to open up a brand new web browser. We go here and boom, here is our output. And if I go to about, here is a little bit about Mike Levan. So I hope that this helped a little bit. I did want to go through some troubleshooting with you so you can kind of see a few different issues that can pop up just primarily because the format package or the FMT package has so many different ways to bring those responses back depending on your use case. So I definitely recommend to look at that FMT package and see all of the different ways to respond. You don't have to memorize all of them. Just make sure you know where the documentation is so you can review it based on what you want to respond with. And with that, this wraps up our Go course. I really appreciate you watching. I hope that you enjoyed it. I hope that you learned a little bit from it. So, again, thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.